Alright, hello everyone. So today we're going to be taking an RC 1/16 scale Henglong Panzer III Ausf, and we're going to be turning it into a much more realistic looking vehicle. The way we're going to be going about this is first we're going to be doing some detail work onto the tools and things like that. Then we're going to be doing some camouflage, and we're also going to be doing some markings. I really hope that this video helps you with your RC needs, and I really hope you can take away some points from this. So thank you for watching. Alright guys, so as you can see, I've taken off some of the detail parts and also taken off the tracks. Now what this is that I am now getting it ready to add the paint job or the camouflage. What we're basically going to be doing is keeping this base coat of the Panzer gray that was already on the vehicle, and now we're just going to be adding on some streaks and lines of dark yellow. This scheme is basically an early Russian scheme, and you see it on many Panzer IIIs early in the Russian campaign. Alright guys, so now that we have painted up the vehicle, and I did use Tamiya XF60 for the dark yellow, there are still a couple points that make this vehicle look much like a toy and takes away from its realism. This is going to include things, kind of detail parts such as the box, also the jack and the fire extinguisher, and especially the tow cables, which is just in a brown, dark brownish plastic, and this is taken off from the vehicle. So later, or really soon, we're going to be going over things like the tools and adding in some more detail work by repainting things. What I'm going to be doing is basically repainting much of the tools with a dark brown on the wooded areas, and also repainting the box in much more, I would say, suitable colors, as the silver and kind of, light brown doesn't exactly add to this kit. So that's really what I'm going to be getting into, and I'm going to start my detail work. So right now I'm just painting a darker gray onto the grille area, as the grille is actually only a sticker, and this will add better contrast to the actual vehicle with the camo. So now I'm going to be repainting the wooden box used for jacking up the vehicle. I'm going to start out by repainting the silver with gray, and then repainting the wood with a darker brown. This will make it look a lot more realistic and basically take out all the bad colors. So now I'm going to be repainting the brown plastic into flat black. I'm also going to be adding some detail color to the gray parts of this tow cable, using a color very similar to the actual vehicle. I will also be adding some metallic pigments. It is not shown though here. So here I'm going to be repainting the fire extinguisher red. This is going to add some contrast and some detail, and it is historically accurate for some early war vehicles of this type. Now we're going to go ahead and start moving into markings, and we're going to start that off by adding the number to the turret. Even though usually Germans did add a 3-digit number, I'm just going to go ahead and use a single. That's going to be 7, solely because 7 looks relatively good as a standalone number. And we're going to be coloring that with some flat black. This is going to add some really good contrast against just the dull gray and yellow of the actual vehicle. After letting the paint dry for about 10 minutes, I then went ahead and started peeling off the masking tape, and also began to remove the actual mask of the number. I did use Tamiya XF1, and this is, as you can see, provided a relatively good looking number, and it definitely has contrast and looks good. So after we went ahead and added the numbers, the second part to the markings was going to be adding the Balkenkreuz, or the cross. Now I didn't have a stencil, so I did end up using the decal, but I did end up sealing that in with some glue just to make sure it sticks. As I was actually adding on the decal, I don't know if you noticed, but I was having some issues with it. The adhesive wasn't really working well, and it started slightly falling apart. So here I'm just using a Sharpie really quick to kind of touch it up, and also some white paint just to kind of fix some of the cracks that were forming in the decal due to kind of like it breaking apart due to the adhesive kind of drying out. So apart from the Balkenkreuz, another decal is going to be the grills, as they are not actually molded into the plastic. So I went ahead and applied those decals for the grills onto the vehicle. Alright, so now we're just going to go ahead and start using Tamiya's panel line accent color. I am using black, and what this is basically going to do is it's going to have all the different crevices, all the panel lines, and all the recessed parts of this vehicle start to pop out. Some areas that I really focused on were the panel lines on the back deck, all the rivet holes that are on the turret, and especially the vision ports and the doors on the turret. Another place I did focus heavily on was the wheels. You can see here that I'm adding it, and it definitely brings out all the different recessed areas. This is really going to help once we start adding some mud and other pigments to the running gear. It'll make these dark places pop out. Okay, so once we have all the recessed areas popping out, we're going to start to use Tamiya's XF52 Flat Earth to start kind of the mudded areas. This is going to focus on the fenders, and later we're going to use different techniques. But right now you can see that I'm starting to add mud stains and some light mud to the actual fenders. This would be caused by kicked up mud by the actual running gear. You can see a bit more clearly here. The technique I'm using is adding a bit of a base layer at the start of the fender. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a paper towel and I'm just going to rub it up. This is going to cause streaks to form, and it's also going to disperse the mud. I continually do this till I get the right consistency. So now we're going to go ahead and start adding some mud streaks or some dirt streaks. This is going to use the same technique as the fenders, but then I'll also beef it up slightly by using my actual brush to start streaking it with the actual paint. So now we're going to start to make this vehicle look a little bit more dirty and a little bit more realistic. The way we're going to do this is start adding accents of brown onto the camo and onto the paint job. The way we're going to do this is by adding some thinner to some paper towels and then adding blotches of paint. We're then going to rub the paint with some paper towels, and it's going to add the accent of brown on the paint job. A big part of this is being realistic about where you do this. Some good spots to do it are going to be on the back of the vehicle where mud's going to get kicked up, and also where crew are going to be moving, as with crew and humans, they do track mud everywhere. A place I would not recommend, for instance, would be on the gun, as that usually in real life is not going to get that dirty. We're going to continue doing this to the vehicle, and it's going to add some good effects to it, make it a little bit more of a used vehicle look and less of a showroom model. Okay, so here's the vehicle after the first stages of weathering. Just to recap, what we've done is just use some brown paint. We first did some mud on the fenders, we did a couple streaks on the vehicle, and then added blotches of paint and spread it around over the vehicle. You can see it now looks a little bit less like a toy and a little bit more like a real vehicle. The next thing we'll be doing is adding some mud and dirt to the running gear. We're going to do this using an airbrush, as that's going to add some easy and good looking effects. After that, we're going to use some pigments and add some streaks of grime and rust, and we'll go from there. Okay, so now we're going to move on into weathering up the bottom side of the vehicle. This is basically just going to introduce some dirt and dust looking paint onto the running gear and the underside, and as you can see, it really kind of muddies it up, really kind of dirties it, breaks up the camouflage, makes it look a lot more worn and used. And this is basically just going to continue the weathering process of the vehicle. So after we've gone ahead and weathered the running gear in the bottom of the vehicle, we're really just going to be moving on to the tracks. The reason why I'm only doing the layer of that brown paint is because this is an RC tank and that is actual running gear, so any other work would be pretty much knocked off. So I'm just going to keep it at that, and it looks pretty good. So now that we've weathered the vehicle with most of the brown we're going to put on this vehicle, we're going to move on to putting some more detail into it and its weathering. This is going to include adding a bit more soot to it, including on the gun barrel, also where the exhaust comes out, and another place is going to be where the air filter is. Now the air filter would have some soot because when the gun is fired, the breech is going to release smoke, and that's then going to be filtered and taken out of the turret, which is of course going to have some carbon particles which are black. That's why I'm painting that black there. Another place we're going to add some soot is where the machine gun comes out of the turret. This is definitely going to kick up some soot, and it's going to add some more realisticness. While we have black loaded up in the airbrush, we're going to go ahead and add a bit more detail too. One thing we're going to do is add some black to the grills. This is going to be a place that would of course be dark, and right now it's light. Another thing that we're going to do is start adding a bit of black to the tools, as right now they're in a very high visibility, bright silver color. So we're just going to add some black to darken it up. Alright, now that we've finished up with the airbrush, we're going to move on to some pigments. We're going to start adding some rust onto the toe cables, which would definitely be realistic, as these toe cables would be used frequently and definitely have water buildup. Another place is going to be where the suit and where the exhaust comes out, these are places that rust regularly due to constant heating and cooling. Also, with some pigments, we're going to be adding some rust streaks, which will definitely show a bit more wear and tear and use of the vehicle. Alright, so now we've pretty much finished up all the weathering of the vehicle. All that's really left is one more step, and you can see that adding all those pigments really helps. Definitely adds a bit of a touch to it, and all the airbrush work definitely also adds to it. You can see down there where the exhaust is, we do have soot, but also at the same time we do have some rust showing. Okay, so now we're just going to finish up this entire process by adding a small layer of buff. This is going to be Tamiya XF57, and it's basically just going to blend all the colors together, add just a bit of a dusty experience to it. Now that we've finished up painting, we're just going to seal this in with the Tester's clear coat. This is a lacquer, and it's basically just going to seal in all the pigments and all the paints. I did do this inside, and I really wouldn't recommend doing that. So at this point, I'm basically just going to give you some before and after pics, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. Alright guys, well that's effectively going to wrap up this video. I really appreciate you all watching, and I really hope you enjoyed my work. I'm going to try to get this on eBay and try to, get this selling. When I do, I'm going to have the description below, so check that out, see if you like it. So yeah, again, thank you so much for your support. I really hope you enjoyed this build and this painting. And if you would, just drop a comment, tell me what you think about the paint job, the weathering. And with that, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.